Good day, fair space explorers. I'm your local man, Fox Likes Pancakes, and today I'm going to be reviewing the space DLC for Terraria, aka Starbound. Now, I'm sure that if you've heard or seen this game before, I'm sure that you probably associate it with being a rip-off version of Terraria set in space because Terraria came first. Well, what if I told you that Terraria was ripping off of Minecraft because Minecraft was the first pixelated survival crafting adventure game? You just sit down and think about that for a second, eh? In my opinion, I think it's incredibly unfair to judge a game's credibility and qualities purely based on its competition or games similar to it. Games that are in the same genre do not affect how each other play, turn out, or look. They are simply values that can be compared at the end of the day. However, for the sake of comparing Minecraft to Terraria to Starbound, I think that Starbound is the overall winner in regards to the style of game that I prefer. Minecraft is great for being a nice, chill game that lets you take everything at your own pace. In a way, it's very therapeutic and relaxing. Terraria, on the other hand, is a lot more hectic and creative, allowing for more inventive and intuitive house building and more monsters to fight. I think I remember citing in my Terraria video that Terraria has roughly 10 times the number of monsters that Minecraft does, meaning that you're constantly shooting or slashing at something. Both games are pretty freeform when it comes to quests and defeating bosses, as they're not explicit as the likes of Starbound. Starbound has the good qualities of Terraria and Minecraft mashed together into one game. The game can be very relaxing at times, as planetary explorations and mining quests are complemented by a soothing orchestral soundtrack. There aren't really any moments where absolutely nothing is happening, but at the same time you never feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of enemies showing up on your screen. The combat is more than just left click like it is in Terraria, and there are more weapon options than rudimentary medieval weapons like in Minecraft. Starbound does have its swords and hammers and axes, but it also has a wide selection of assault rifles, grenade launchers, and pistols included in the game. So now that I'm done wasting the last 3 minutes on exposition explaining why I prefer Starbound to other survival games, let me talk about Starbound itself. Starbound is a story-driven survival crafting game where you, the silent main protagonist, were appointed as a guardian for the Terran Protectorate, some intergalactic defense force based on Earth. Immediately afterwards, Earth is raped by a giant hentai space squid which forces you to flee on your damaged ship. You lose consciousness and find yourself orbiting an unknown planet, at which point you have no option but to beam down and start attempting to survive. From there, it's pretty much your standard survival crafting game, where you have to build shelter and working surfaces to build certain materials so that you can gradually upgrade your equipment. The materials necessary are found by mining or in various chests and boxes owned by pointless NPCs or scattered throughout the world. The NPCs are quite literally useless, as they don't tell you anything useful, don't do much aside from establish that there are other alien species living on these distant planets, and they don't mind if you take all of the possessions out of their chests, so long as you don't take any of their furniture or the box itself. Exploring the world itself is somewhat hazardous, as you will encounter monsters that will try to kill you, with monsters spawning more frequently and becoming more aggressive at night. Some of them do minimal damage, while others will take a significant chunk out of your health and are a genuine threat to your survival. When exploring different worlds, each world will display a threat level, which indicates the difficulty of the monsters there, even if you've seen them previously on easier worlds. For example, these guys on a low threat world I can wipe out in one hit, but it takes me 2 hits with a significantly more powerful weapon to take them down on a dangerous threat world. As such, your character progression feels like character progression, and instead of face rolling the same enemies over and over again because you're only on one map, you have the option to say, I want to go over here to face tougher competition. On top of that, these other planets are more likely to yield better rewards and tougher materials with which you can upgrade your equipment. Starbound also has a story to it and a grand overall point to your questing, which you can choose to follow or ignore completely. If you do ignore it, there's really nothing bad that happens as far as I can tell, and to be honest, I don't know how worth my time it is. I actually only do this story if I get bored, which doesn't happen very often because I'm very okay with sitting back and mining a world for all it's worth before moving on to the next one. What the story does for me is add another optional element that involves me exploring a dungeon-esque location and defeating the boss at the end. See what I mean though? Aliens exist. They are real. This is direct proof from the government that they don't want you to know that they do. Hold on.
Hello, can I help you?
Agent Moreau here of the CSIS. We suggest that you come with us quietly.
You'll never take me alive!
Moving on to quite possibly my favorite part of the whole game. Overall, I'd say that the game does well in most everything, but where it exceeds expectations is in its soundtrack. If you're sitting back and chilling on a planet, The music adds to that atmosphere perfectly. If you're in a dungeon about to take on a boss, the music takes on this slightly ominous tone that indicates that you are in a dangerous area and that precautions should be taken to avoid dying if at all possible. Here, instead of me continuing to talk about the soundtrack, how about I just show you some of it? The main problem that I have with this game is that it's so incredibly niche in the kind of audience that it reaches. I know that I personally love the game, but it's an incredibly boring game to watch and ergo very boring to play. If you're not into survival crafting genre, heck, I even think that Terraria is more visually entertaining than Starbound, because there's always something happening on screen. Starbound, not as much. And even though I love the game, I do have my limits or points where I say, yeah, I've played enough of this for now, and shift over to some other game. Maybe that's a normal thing for people to do, but I find myself binging shorter sessions of Starbound than any other games like Darkest Dungeon, or even League of Legends back a number of months ago. Another thing that I was considering complaining about was the system that the game has in place for upgrading materials, and how it's not explicitly clear what kind of armor you should have ahead of going into a boss area, but at the same time it's something that helps add to the challenge of the game. By not holding your hand all the way through the game, you truly are trying to help your character survive the destruction of Earth. I think that's about all that I have to say about Starbound. It's a great game, and as someone who greatly enjoys platformers like Terraria, I enjoyed this game as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, aliens are not real. They're not. They really aren't. I'll see you on the flip side. Goodbye!